Let's get started with our tutorial for the GI log template designer. We'll begin by creating a new template. You can also import templates from this panel, including any templates you've previously built and exported. However, for the sake of this presentation, we're going to create a new template. Once we click on New Template, you'll see a built-in library of templates. Currently, it includes 4 example templates. Each template is available in both A4 and letter sizes. You can select any of these templates and modify them to suit your needs, which saves you time along the way. This library will expand in the future. For now, we'll click on a blank template. After selecting a blank template, this is how the template designer environment will appear. You'll have a general settings panel, an elements panel, a header, footer, columns, and legend sheet section, and the preview and undo and redo buttons. In this panel, you can modify the header and footer. To change the columns, you need to click on the second panel and adjust the column properties there. This overview shows how the columns look, but you cannot edit anything here. To make any changes, click on the Columns tab or the Columns hyperlink here, which will allow you to modify them. The Add Legend Sheet panel allows you to create a legend sheet that explains the symbols, patterns, abbreviations, and other notations used in the boring log. This helps ensure that anyone reading the log can interpret the information correctly and consistently. We will cover the Legend Sheet panel and the Columns panel in separate tutorial videos. Under the header and footer section, you can hide the elements toolbar if you no longer need it. You can also change the header, footer, and column sizes here. For example, I want 18% of my log to be dedicated to the header and 5% to the footer. You can hide columns if you don't need them, and if the workspace is still too small, you can maximize the panel to view the full screen. Clicking the 3-dot button will let you delete, rename, duplicate, or export your template, or make it the default option in GI log. Selecting Make Default will add the word default next to the template, meaning you won't have to select it each time you create a new exploration in the GI log. It will automatically be applied to save you time. Let's rename this template to Example Template and move on to the General Settings. In the General Settings panel, you can hide or show the rulers. You can also choose whether you want a separate header and footer for pages after page 1. If you select this option, a second header and footer will be added to your panel, allowing you to create a different template for pages after the first one. Initially, the default margin and borders for the second header and footer will be similar to the first page, but you can change them as you edit. You also have the option to enable grids for the header and footer and to use the Snap to Grid feature. You can choose the grid size, which will help you design your elements more easily. You can set the orientation to either portrait or landscape. Our PDF logs are typically in portrait mode. Additionally, you can set the default line thickness and text font for the entire document. Any text or line entries after these settings will follow these defaults, saving you time when designing your templates. Next, you can select the paper size. For this tutorial, I've selected letter as the paper size. You can also choose the unit of measurement in pixels, inches, or millimeters. The rulers will adjust accordingly. For this tutorial, I'll go with pixels. In the margin panel, you can drag the margin lines to adjust the margins. As long as the lock button is selected, the margins will maintain the same ratio. You can also manually enter values. For example, I'm going to unlock the ratio and set the top margin to 40 and the bottom margin to 10. If you unlock the ratios, you can change individual values and adjust the margins as needed. You can also reset the margins to their default settings by clicking the Reset to Default button. If you want, you can adjust the margins as needed. These margins are represented as lines in the program, allowing you to modify their height, length, or thickness manually. However, once you manually adjust a margin, it will no longer be part of the margin panel's automatic settings. To restore it, simply click the Reset to Default button and it will revert to its original state. Now let's set the margins. We'll set the top margin to 40, the bottom margin to 10, and the side margins to 25. In the Elements toolbar, you can add various elements to your template. For example, to add a line, either click and drag to define its length and orientation, or click once to place it with the default length and orientation. Once added, you'll see options to copy, bring to the back or front, or delete the line. To adjust the position of an element, you can enter the coordinates directly for precise placement. You can also change the line thickness, type, and color. You can add text, modify its font size, alignment, and formatting, as well as change the text color. For this tutorial, I'm using a white fill and black text color. You can also add parameters. To do this, click once or drag the parameter box within the page. Once added, you can select from a drop-down list of available parameters in the GI log, which are organized by tab. You can also search for specific parameters. Please note that under the groundwater tab, 3 types of readings are available: after drilling, during drilling, and at drilling completion. The readings shown on the log will be defined in the module. If multiple readings are recorded and selected for demonstration for any of these event types, they will be shown here, separated by commas. Backfill parameters will follow the same selection and display process as groundwater measurements. The user will choose which backfill parameters to include in the log, and the selected parameters will appear here. For now, I'll select project name and make it bold and align. You can change the vertical and horizontal spacing of the texts and parameters here. At any point, you can preview your log to see how it looks. You can add an image by either dragging and dropping a file or selecting a file from your computer. Please note that the image must be in PNG format. Once added, you can adjust its size as needed. You can also add a rectangle, which can have a fill color, different stroke, line type, thickness, and corner angles. Similarly, you can add ellipses, adjusting them to look like circles or ovals, and customize their fill color. Once you've added elements, you can preview how your log looks. Here's the final template that we've been able to design efficiently using the GI Log Template Designer tool. This concludes our overview of how the header and footer work. In the next tutorial, we will discuss how to edit columns in the GI Log template.